I love the Reed Richards chapter about how far his penis can stretch. I think that's my funniest chapter. That's the one where I'm like, I nailed it. These jokes, these penis jokes are awesome.
All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to Zero Dark Nerdy, the world's most average pop culture podcast. Today in studio, we have the incredibly talented, the funny Diana McCallum here to promote her brand new book, The Sex Lives of Superheroes, out now. And I got to tell you, this is such a fun read. You should be able to check this out on Amazon and anywhere you can get books from. And on top of that, this is a fantastic book to be able to, give to your comic book friends and family members for Christmas. Hence the ugly Christmas sweater here for Wu-Tang. So, Diana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
I am very, very, very glad to have you on. So, you're a writer as well as a podcaster based out of Toronto. You're the co-creator of the web comic Text from Superheroes.
Yes, I am.
And on top of that, you also host Talk from Superheroes podcast. So for those of you listening, be sure to definitely check that out. This book has gotten rave reviews from, some of the big guns in the industry. Rob Liefeld, creator of Deadpool, said super sex, super duper awesome, dangerous and daring, pushes the envelope and all of the buttons. I was riveted throughout. So before we get into the book, like, how great is that getting praise from, one of the most famous comic book artists out there?
It was a really cool day. Yes, I will admit I actually have not met Rob. We have the same publisher. So
Okay.
his book Observations is coming out next year. We have the same publisher. So when his book was announced and my book was already in the editing stage, I was like, could you guys get it to him? I feel like it's going to be right up his alley. And they were
Yeah.
like, we absolutely will. And he came back pretty quick with, it was right up my alley. Yes, absolutely. The sex book about superheroes kind of fit his vibe. Uh,
I'm sure. I'm sure. And I think I can speak for all comic book fans here. Again, this is such a fun read because it's not just like thinking about it, but at the same time putting in the scientific aspects of could this possibly happen or not. But I think as comic book fans, we've all thought at least once in our lives, like, what is the sex life of most superheroes like? So, tell me a little bit about your journey into this phenomenal book and how that came about. And most importantly, too, I was curious as I was reading, as you were getting the professional opinion of, people in, like, scientists in the field, what was their kind of feedback and take on all this as well, too?
All right. So starting at the way beginning, it kind of started. I used to write for cracked.com in like the mid 2000s, the comedy website.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very big on like fact-based humor. It has to be based in facts, but that makes it funnier. And I would do these articles about weird sex things in comics, and they always did great. So, and also make maybe like the Marvel swimsuit editions, stuff like that. People just like things about superheroes and sex. It always lands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of in the back of my head. And then, I started doing Text from Superheroes, my web comic, but I'm still writing. And a friend of mine had a publisher who was looking for ideas. And this kind of just came to me as like a mix of things I'd written for Cracked, kind of all the questions you asked from Mallrats, if there was actually like
Mhm.
definitive answers to the Mallrats questions of that everyone has, can Superman have sex with Lois Lane? Does Reed Richards' penis stretch? Does The Rock have an orange penis? Many penis related questions. And I added many non-penis things, but there's still so much penis stuff to go into. So that was just kind of how it all came together. Really just also things that I had kind of questioned while I was like writing my own articles in my own webcomic. I think my favorite chapter and my favorite research thing was about the Spider-Man Reign chapter. So famously, Spider-Man kills Mary Jane with
Right.
radioactive semen in one of his comics. And I was like, can semen even be radioactive? I really am curious about this. And I bet other people are. And it comes to these wonderful conclusions. And it was really fun to come up with a book and an idea that is really half entertainment and half fun, crazy facts and education. It was really fun to write. It's been really fun to read people's responses. So the second part of your question about the professionals I spoke to,
Uh-huh.
the response I would say was mixed because it really depended on the nerdy knowledge of the professional.
Hmm.
The first doctor I talked to was an OBGYN who was who is so smart. She's so much smarter than me. She's a medical doctor, of course, but she's not nerdy, and she just kind of didn't get it. I was trying to explain like, well, Supergirl's vagina would be like steel because she has superpowers. She's like steel, so just what? she she didn't quite get it. But she, still helped me with a couple
Mm.
things. But then later, the two doctors I talked to, the fertility doctors, they're also nerds, and they were so down, and they were so helpful, and they had their own ideas, like their own thoughts. They were like, what about this issue of the comic where this happens to Wolverine? So it really depends on the nerdy level of the doctor that you speak
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, no, excellent. That is one of the first chapters as I was reading it. The is Spider-Man semen actually radioactive? And it provides a lot of fun facts too, because I would say as much as I love comic books, I don't know everything about every single character, right? So I'm also learning about that, especially that chapter that he ended up, Peter Parker ended up killing Mary Jane because of all that and how that could make sense. So you're also learning more as comic book fans, but also seeing the science put in there is so interesting. And I mean, I spent many, many nights when I first got it. I will say this, God bless my wife. She was like, what is going on right here?" And I was like, "Listen, I'm getting to interview Diana." So, but I'm like, at the same time, this is a super fun read, and she's actually started to read it herself, and she's been very, very entertained by all of it. So, kudos to you for really, just such a fun topic that, like I said, I feel like in a way, all comic book people have kind of thought about this in one way or another. I mean, the only time I've ever seen a sex scene on screen, or at least the first one, was, from what I can remember, is on Watchmen with Doctor Manhattan and Silk Spectre, where it was like three of him pleasuring
Mhm.
her while he
Yes.
was in his normal form or his normal state, still working on the deterrent to the nuclear crisis that was going on in the movie. So did that kind of play into this at all on any of your chapters or whatnot, or is that just something that you considered?
I didn't really consider a Watchmen one. Kind of the same reason that there's not very much about the boys, even though the boys is very
Right.
popular and the boys is very sexual. Even when as I was pitching this book, my publisher was like, "Oh, the boys is very popular. There's probably tons you can write about them." But there actually isn't, because when the sex slaves are actually on screen, there's less to like kind of guess about and speculate. Like there's nothing to
Right.
speculate with the boys. If you're wondering if a man can shrink down into his boyfriend's penis, and he can't, they'll just show you that. If you're wondering if there's what an orgy between superheroes would be like, the boys just shows you. So
Yeah.
when there's actually explicit sex stuff on screen with superheroes, it kind of was less for me to do and to look
Sure.
into. It was more the implied stuff, like Incredible Hulk, when he thinks he's going to Hulk out if he has sex with Betty Ross, but
Hmm.
he's not sure. That was actually something I could play with, of like, oh well, what is your adrenaline levels when your heartbeat gets to this level, and what are his Hulk out levels and things like that. So that was something I could look into. But yeah, usually pretty much anytime there was actually sex on screen, I was like, well, this ruins everything. I can't, there's nothing for me
There's
to
nothing to the
figure out.
imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on the Hulk one too, because I believe that's a chapter right after Spider-Man. And it's so interesting to see because I do remember watching The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton and him keeping an eye on his heart rate and things like that. And it's just so cool how you're able to incorporate that into, all right, if his, you know, blood pressure or heart level gets to this point, then yes, he could actually Hulk out, and this could be bad for all parties involved. So, at the end of the day, it's just such a fun read. And I know it just came out November 19th. What's kind of been the feedback so far on your end? And again, the more people I talk to about this, they're like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear this episode." And I really think that this is going to be a big hit just right in time for Christmas.
The feedback has been really great and really fun. I think I've been surprised on people's like favorite chapters, because I
Yeah.
know what my favorite chapters are, but I think it might depend on what you're interested in and who your favorite characters are. Like I know Batman is a very, very popular character, but someone recently was like, his chapter was my favorite. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that, because he's so talked about. I didn't know if there was enough to mine for Batman.
Mhm.
I think my favorite response has been finding out people are just learning a lot about actual sex, and they, because I think all the nerds who read it already know a lot of the nerdy stuff about nerd. They're like, yes, we know about Spider-Man Reign. We know that Captain America is apparently a virgin. We know all this. But then the people who have left reviews that are like, I learned a lot about female sexual like reproductive organs, which I did not know and have never wanted to learn. But when you frame it around superheroes, it's actually really interesting. I'm like, that wasn't my goal, and I'm very happy it happened. My goal was mostly to make people laugh, and I
Yeah,
love framing my jokes around facts and science.
yeah.
But I was very, very happy to get a few reviews of like, wow, I learned a lot, and my wife's really happy, and I'm like, awesome. I'm happy for everyone involved in this situation.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I mean, being a fun read is you could tell that you're a fan first and foremost. And this isn't, this isn't like an educational book as far as like here's the penis, here's the vagina. You put your own spin on it, which is great while you're reading it because like a lot of the stuff that you call out, I'm like, yes, yes, I get that. I get where she's going with that. So it's again it's so fantastic. So I know you mentioned you kind of touched on it a little bit as far as your favorite chapters, but what are some of your favorite chapters in the book?
One of my Spider-Man Reign is definitely up there. I was really so happy with the science I found, like the
Yeah.
scientific studies that so specifically answered these specific questions I had. So that one is really, really fun. In terms of just jokes, I love the Reed Richards chapter about how far his penis can stretch. I think that's my funniest chapter. That's the one where I'm like, I nailed it. These jokes, these penis jokes are awesome. which is which is hard when you have a whole book full of penis jokes.
Right.
Of like really getting some good ones all together and not just repeating the same ones over and over again. So I really like the read one. And for funny, in terms of just the most interesting, I think my favorite chapter is actually Captain America, which I touched on.
Hmm.
Because this was really a question for me as a huge like Captain America fan, Bucky Barnes fan, who also kind of ties into this of like what was Captain America's sexual education actually like? Like what does he think sex is when he wakes
Right.
up in 2012? This was
Right.
a huge question for me. Like, he doesn't even in 1943, he doesn't know that fondue is not a sex act. He seems wildly uneducated even for the time.
Yeah.
So finding out that like, there was no such education, just going through the things he doesn't know, like he doesn't know about birth control, he doesn't know we cured syphilis, he doesn't know about the AIDS crisis.
Right.
Just kind of walking through all the things he does and doesn't know about sex, all the myths he probably thinks are still real. That was really fun for me as a like, oh, Steve, poor guy. And then also probably Bucky still. He does. I don't think they gave him sex ed in Hydra. So the same for that guy.
No, no. And I mean, Bucky's definitely been such a crowd favorite, obviously especially since Winter Soldier and then going on. And we can't wait to see him back in the Thunderbolts. And just to kind of touch on that, what are you excited about? What it doesn't just have to be Marvel, but just comic book wise, whether if it's graphic novels, comic books, things like that, or even movies or TV shows coming out in next year in 2025. But what have you enjoyed this year as well?
This year the Penguin slapped so hard.
So
Penguin
good.
was incredible. Oh my goodness. I mean, this year's been pretty bare bones. Like Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like that was like, I think in another year it wouldn't have felt so good, but this was a real drop off year. I mean, what even came out this year? It's like Madam Web,
Yeah.
Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think and Craven doesn't come out till next week, and like I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll be great. Actually, the trailers don't look bad. I'm actually fingers crossed for
Yeah.
Craven. I
Yeah.
love Russell Crowe, so I really want Craven to be great. But looking forward to I genuinely Thunderbolts. It looks really fun. I'm a huge Bucky fan. I love Sebastian Stan. I love Florence Pugh. I'm glad she got
Oh,
her own movie. So I really am hoping Thunderbolts rules. And then also, I really hope Daredevil Born Again is great. I would love to recapture the magic of that Daredevil season
yeah.
or series on Netflix. I don't know if they can, but it would be amazing if they did. So I'm really am holding out hope for Daredevil and Thunderbolts being great. And then
Yeah.
I don't even know what DC's doing. I don't think is Superman out next year?
Yeah.
There's no
Well, yeah.
trailer, so it's hard to be
Superman's out
excited.
next year. Yeah. So, trailer. Apparently, the rumor is it's supposed to come out when Mufasa comes out. So the trailer is supposed to come out here this month, and yeah, so that's going to be the big one. And then we have the animated Creature Commandos coming out. I think it's out now on HBO Max, but I think they're doing it week by week. And then we have Peacemaker season two. Just like you said, Penguin was such a phenomenal TV show. It deserves all the Emmys and Golden Globes. We that was our last podcast episode. My daughter and I. She was a huge fan of the show, especially the movie, The Batman, where it just went right after. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for next year to see what happens. Thunderbolts, just like you said, Florence Pugh as White Widow. She has just been chef's kiss as well. Sebastian Stan coming back as Bucky. That's just him. I mean, Marvel has done a good job with making characters like Guardians of the Galaxy, for instance, not super heavy comic book favorites by any means, but in particular, James Gunn doing this with these characters, and I think they did a great job with Bucky all the way from Civil War, or of course, Winter Soldier, then Civil War, and then we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, which became Captain America and Winter Soldier, which I still kind of predict because that's going to be the first one that comes out next year. It's supposed to actually come out on Valentine's Day, which I thought was an interesting choice. But I still feel that Bucky might make an appearance in that. I know everyone's excited for Harrison Ford to be Red Hulk, but well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I've had this argument with my partner and co-host. I think there will be no Bucky in Captain America
Okay.
4. I think because Thunderbolts is out, it doesn't feel. I think there might be a throwaway line of like why Bucky isn't here.
Right.
He's doing this thing, but I love Bucky and I'd love if he was there, but I just
Uh,
don't think they're going to. But I do think, yeah, Bucky's an interesting one for me because so much of the OG kind of like characters are completely gone. I think Bucky's the oldest character still around, other
yeah.
than Nick Fury, if we still consider him around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a very solid point. I mean, Bucky's been around since the first Captain America film. And he's not looking to hang up the arm anytime soon. I did love it in the trailer when he pulled it out of the dishwasher. We now know that his arm is dishwasher safe. In case
I would hope
people are
vibranium
wondering.
can go through the
you,
dishwasher.
you would think, right?
If it can't, huge news about the weaknesses to vibranium. Don't get the jet dry in there.
Right. Yeah. Put it. Don't take the heat. Don't put the heat on there. Just let it air dry, if anything. So excellent. Besides this phenomenal book right here, again, Sex Lives of Superheroes, be sure to check it out. Where else can people find it? And and also like where can people find you? Just in terms of, I know I mentioned the podcast earlier, but in terms of social media, website, things like that.
Sex Lives of Superheroes is available pretty much wherever you get your books. It's distributed by Penguin Random House. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, bookshop.org. The audio version is available on Audible if you would like to listen to my book. There is an audiobook version. You can find that there. And then my webcomic, Text from Superheroes, which if you've seen Two Superheroes Texting, that's me. And my podcast, Talk from Superheroes, you can find all that at fromsuperheroes.com. We kind of have it all under the one umbrella. We do so much superhero stuff over here. So
Yeah.
fromsuperheroes.com is where you can find all the links to the book, to the webcomic, to the show. It's all right there.
Awesome. Now I got to ask, for the audio version, did you record that?
I did not. My co-host Andrew Ivamy did.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
he is a
Excellent. Good
voice
to
actor,
know.
so he was more attuned to the abilities, and he did a great job. It's so funny. He did. I'm like standing outside as he records, and I'm like, oh, he did such a good job. Those are the jokes because he gets my humor. He's my co-host.
Yeah.
He totally nailed it.
Nice. Good. Because I have a lot of friends that love, books on audio. I'm old school. I got to read it. If I'm just in the car, I just tune out too much faster. I'm also one of those people that gets very tired the longer I drive, and
Mm.
books on audio makes me even more tired, no matter how good it is. So I'm still a paper guy. Like I don't have like an ebook thing, and I don't put them all on my iPad. I'd rather just read it before bed. It helps my brain shut down and just kind of be like, okay, here you go. Um, so just a couple things to wrap up here. What's next? On your palette in terms of books. I mean, what's going to be the follow up to this incredible masterpiece right here?
There is a pitch in the works that I'm not speaking of yet
Okay,
because I've got to finish it, got to send it around.
okay,
You got to get people's eyes on it. So I will not say, but there is, yes, there's another idea. Also, even just doing this, like talking to people who've read this and doing this press tour, I thought I was out of ideas about maybe doing a sequel to this book, but people have had some interesting thoughts. I'm
oh,
like, oh,
I'm
maybe I
sure.
do have more to say about if people are interested in a follow-up book or an expanded edition or something like that.
I'm
I'm
sure.
not
And
saying it can't happen.
Oh no, and I'm glad you mentioned that too because I go to a lot of conventions. Have you thought about, doing a, Comic Con or convention tour in 2025 to help promote the book as well as other projects?
I might do a small Canadian one. It's hard to
Okay.
go to the American cons because if you try to bring books to sell, they're like, you can't because that's working and you need a visa. They're real strict about it.
Gotcha.
So I'll probably do a couple Canadian cons, but I doubt I'll be getting to the States, which is
Okay.
unfortunate because I would love to see people. I've done cons in Canada as well already. I have never had a book to sell, but I've done podcast panels and
Okay.
booths before. So I've been around, but yeah, a more extensive one is planned for 2025.
Okay. All right. Well, just know everywhere we go this year, we're going to Toy Fair in March, New York Comic Con again for year number 9, Galaxy Con. So anything we can do to help promote this beautiful book. I mean, I know you're going to crush it, especially with the holidays. Came out at the perfect time. Be sure to check it out. Sex Lives of Superheroes, Diana McCallum. Great read, a lot of fun. Get this to all your comic book fans out there. And even if you're not a fan of comic books and you're just intrigued by sex in general and just kind of curious, I mean, I think it's a good read for everybody. I don't think that you just have to be a comic book fan to enjoy the book. If you enjoy humor, comedy, and just so, some nice little quips in there about science and facts on, again, questions that we would ask as comic book fans. I think it's a great read for. I wouldn't say the whole family. I wouldn't give this to my 8-year-old niece or anything like that. But definitely PG-13 and up for sure.
I think PG-13. Yeah, I think that's fair. But yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. Yes, I think I'm biased, but I do think it makes a great gift for any
Awesome.
nerd. Even if even and not even as a joke gift, but also maybe if you're looking for a joke gift that turns into a real gift.
There you go. There you go. And if it does improve your own sex life, hey, you know who to thank right over here. So